Welcome back to our live video trading series. Today we are talking about the crypto privacy sector. Very appropriate considering the huge hack last week of the Japanese exchange Coincheck. And that was the biggest heist in history with a single keystroke. Imagine this, with a single keystroke, one user removed all the NEM coin from Coincheck, and that was a $500 million heist, which is not just the biggest heist in history of cryptocurrency, but the biggest heist in all of history, including paper money cash heists. Okay, this is some examples. The Securitas Depot robbery, $83 million cash. The Knightsbridge security deposit robbery, $97 million in cash. The Baghdad bank heist, $282 million in cash. And then the MountGox hack, in which $450 million worth of Bitcoin was stolen from the world's largest exchange, estimated to be worth around $80 million less than what we're talking about here with the NEM that was stolen from the Coincheck exchange. So this 530, this is a story from CNN. The $530 million cryptocurrency heist may be the biggest ever. And so it's appropriate now to talk about the detective work that was done after the MountGox hack and how that can teach us about blockchain protocols that protect privacy and anonymity. And I love analyzing detective work. So let's get right down to it. This is the Japanese security firm that investigated the MountGox theft. This image here shows exactly why blockchain is anonymous but not private. Okay, it's anonymous in the sense that no one knows who owns a Bitcoin address. Okay, and transactions in most cryptocurrencies are executed in this exact way. Owner 0 signs a transaction that transfers ownership to owner 1 and sends that cryptocurrency to the public address of owner 1. Then owner 1 sends it on to owner 2, again sending it on to the public address using their private key to sign the transaction over to owner 2, and etc. down the chain. But the thing is that key, that private key, is the only way to link that private key to an actual human, to the identity of the person who's sending the cryptocurrency, is with this private key. And that private key, it's kind of like, imagine a key with a fingerprint reader on it, and you have to activate that key with your fingerprint. So you're the only one who can open the end of the chain of transactions and prove ownership, prove that you own the coins that were sent in that chain of transactions that were sent to your public key. So no one actually knows the person who owns a Bitcoin address, although all the addresses on the network are transparent, which is why it's anonymous but not private. Everyone can see every transaction on the blockchain. And that brings us back to the detective work done by the MountGox investigators. Now, in case you don't remember, the MountGox was the leading exchange in the world for trading Bitcoin, and they kept a hot wallet, which is an online wallet. We talked yesterday about hot and cold storage and how to protect your cryptocurrency assets. Okay, so hot storage is in software or in the cloud or in an app or with a third party online so that it's accessible to hackers. Cold storage can be either hard storage, like using a hard wallet, or paper storage, but it's stored offline, so it's not vulnerable to hackers. Another way to protect assets online is using multi-signature technology. That is, so that even if the hackers stole the signature, that private key that connected to the public address to which the coins were sent, they still would have to have another signature to access those cryptocurrencies. But in this case, the MountGox investigators were able to trace the addresses, the public addresses that were sent through the Bitcoin network in order to uh, finally figure out who was responsible for it. And it took years and years of detective work. So it's pretty fascinating. The hot wallet private keys were stolen. And this is kind of amazing. In the case of a simple copied data file, the wallet.dat file was copied. And just copying that gave the thieves access to all those private keys, all the addresses that could open and connect to the public keys to which those coins were sent. And this was an ongoing theft. In other words, once they got those keys, it says here they were able to spend the incoming trickle of bitcoins deposited to any of the addresses contained in it. So once they got that data file, they were able to just keep receiving bitcoins to those addresses and then transfer them to themselves under other addresses and just spend the money that way. Once the trickle of Bitcoin to those addresses had slowed down, they had taken about, it says here, about 630,000 Bitcoin. And some of the coins eventually were deposited back to accounts in MountGox, and that allowed the investigators to use those accounts to trace back to the thieves themselves. And this is a fascinating diagram here. This blue bar over here is the actual MountGox theft, and it says MountGox theft 707,925 Bitcoin. And then if you hover over one of these curving shadows, you can see where those Bitcoin went to. And even though we don't, these private keys are private, okay, they're anonymous, you can't link them to the actual identity of the person who holds the key, there's still a public address through which they're transferred. And following the chain of those public addresses, you can get an idea eventually of who is transferring these coins and where they go. And ultimately, the detectives were able to determine where who was responsible for this. And this says, over time, the hacker regularly emptied out whatever coins they could spend and sent them to wallets controlled by this guy Vinik, who was arrested in Greece in July 2017. And so it went on for a long period of time. And you remember that data file was stolen in 2011. So now we're talking about over a 6-year period. This guy was finally arrested, and he was suspected of other crimes of money laundering as well. So that detective work shows exactly why cryptocurrency on the blockchain is anonymous but not private, because the transactions themselves can be traced from public address to public address, even if the private keys that connect to those public addresses are not known, are anonymous. So that is how the detectives ended up doing this work, and it took years to put together this flow diagram, but it's fascinating because it shows the flow of all the Bitcoin that were stolen in the initial MountGox. It basically takes 708,000 Bitcoin and watch them flow through these other public addresses, and eventually figured out who owned these or what private identity connected to these public addresses. Now, since everyone can see every transaction, that's how the detectives were able to work. Now, what does this mean to you, and how does it affect the crypto privacy space that there are so many coins to evaluate and to figure out which ones are going to dominate and which ones have the greatest value within that space? Okay, so first of all, how does it affect you? Well, think about this for a second. Imagine how every transaction can be traced back through public addresses. So let's say, for example, you paid your rent in Bitcoin. So let's say this right here was your rent. Okay, now your landlord could actually, just knowing the amount and your public address, could go back and look at money that is flowing to you and figure out how much money you earn in Bitcoin. And you can see how anybody with just knowledge of an amount and the public address could start creating a chain of transactions that would give them quite a bit of information about the person doing the transacting, even if they don't necessarily know their personal identity and don't necessarily know the connection of the private key to the public address. So even not knowing the identity of the holder of this private key, just knowing the public addresses and the amounts and the dates and the times, that meta information can give someone quite a lot of information to construct a chain of transactions and get an idea about who this person is. So we're going to talk about the ZCoin protocol, and particularly two coins, ZCash and ZCoin. Now, ZCoin is a much smaller up-and-comer. So, ZCash is the bigger privacy cryptocurrency at the moment. And if you look at this, the Yahoo heat map with the market capitalizations on it, you can see that ZCash is here, ZEC. Don't get them confused. Okay, ZEC is market capitalization of 1.25 billion and current price about $393. And ZCoin is XZC, and it's down here at 263 million and price of $72. So 263 million versus 1.25 billion. So ZCash has about 5 times the market capitalization of ZCoin, which is XZC. But XZC is an up-and-comer in this space. And so we're going to look at some of the characteristics of XZC, that is ZCoin, and how they compare to ZCash. And this ZCoin protocol is based on zero-knowledge proofs. And now that sounds, it's a cryptographic tool that sounds a little bit, cryptic, which it ought to be because it's cryptography, but it's a way of proving that you have some information without actually revealing what the substance of that information is. And I'll explain what that means in a minute, but look at how we can compare transactions on for example, a Bitcoin blockchain versus a ZCoin protocol blockchain. Okay, this top one, A, is a Bitcoin blockchain, and transactions in different blocks are linked, and anyone can trace back the history of a transaction, both in amount and public address, all the way back to the origin of those coins. And that is a perpetual unbreakable chain that just keeps growing. Now, with the ZCoin protocol, it is completely different. Okay, new coins are minted and replace the old coins. So the new coins are minted, the old coins are burned, so that there's no history behind those coins. And that gives you complete privacy. So you have anonymity and privacy. The new coins appear on the blockchain with no previous history. And the amazing thing about that is that the zero-knowledge proof, that's where the zero-knowledge proof comes in to play here. The zero-knowledge proof is the ZCoin wallet using the zero-knowledge proof to show that it's entitled to mint the new coins and to burn the old ones without having to reveal anything about the coins themselves, the history, the amounts, the destinations, the dates, any of the metadata about those transactions are burned along with the old coins. So new coins are minted using a zero-knowledge proof to show that I'm minting these new coins and destroying the same amount of old coins. And in that way, I can do that using a zero-knowledge proof so that I can not transmit any of the information about those coins, but I can transmit enough information to prove that I have the entitlement to mint those new coins and burn the old ones. So that process goes on without ever revealing the any information about the coins or their history, their amounts, their destinations, their dates, times, anything like that. And that's how the zero knowledge proof works within the zero coin protocol. Now ZCash and ZCoin both use the zero knowledge protocol, but like I said before, ZCash is about 5 times the market capitalization of ZCoin. So ZCoin is an up-and-comer, one that you might want to look at. Other characteristics of ZCoin is that all of these zero knowledge proof protocols require a trusted setup phase, and this is one way that ZCoin and ZCash differ. The initial parameters to set up the zero knowledge or set up the zero coin protocol in order to bootstrap the network and get it started. ZCoin used parameters generated back in the early 90s during an RSA factoring challenge. And in this way, the creators of ZCoin didn't actually generate the parameters themselves, so they don't know them, so they can't cheat and just make coins out of thin air. If you had those parameters, the initial parameters from the setup phase, and you weren't you weren't trustworthy, then you could actually generate new coins out of thin air. So since these guys don't know those parameters, they can't do that. Now, the ZCoin team is also working on something called the Sigma protocol, which would eliminate the need for a trusted setup, and that would be a better situation. They also, their incentives, they have Z nodes, which are nodes on the ZCoin network that are incentivized to run a full copy of the blockchain. And anyone running a Z node is entitled to 30% of the newly mined coins, which is 15 coins every block. But it requires a pretty large stake, 1,000 Z coins, and right now that's about that's about 70. I think 70. Let's see, Z. Let's go to XZC. $73,000. So there, it requires a pretty significant stake to run a Z node. And they also accomplish decentralization. They're working on a proof of work protocol which will resist mining by GPU and ASICs, which are the supercomputers that cost a lot of money, so that mining can be actually done by the little guy with just a CPU. Now ZCash, as I mentioned before, is the coin with the market capitalization about 5 times ZCoin. And looking at ZCash in comparison to the other coins in the crypto privacy space, Monero here in green, Dash in blue, Verge in orange, and ZCash in purple. So you can see the crypto privacy space, so far this year, not doing great, but the ZCash is one of the leaders in the crypto privacy space, all the way up here, with a market capitalization of 1.25 billion, and the ones ahead of ZCash in the crypto privacy space are let's see, we've got, Dash is over here at 5.4 billion, Monero at 4.3 billion. So ZCash is well up there as far as the crypto privacy space is concerned. Now ZCash is more private because it uses the highest level of cryptography. Okay, and those are called ZK snarks, and it's an even higher level of cryptography. It's much more advanced, but it takes longer. So it can take up to a minute to generate a private transaction for ZCash on a computer. So it does take longer than for ZCoin, and it can take a lot of memory. It's between 2 and 3 gigabytes of RAM. And the trusted setup, the initial conditions for ZCash are actually different than ZCoin's. Okay, ZCoin, the setup required less trust. That is, they used a initial condition setup that the founders weren't even aware of. ZCash actually went through a very elaborate ritual using 6 different individuals to generate piece of the master key, and they're supposed to destroy, they're each supposed to destroy their portion, and as long as at least one of them is honest. So you got 6 people. If one of them is honest, then the network is secure and no one can create coins out of thin air. But remember, ZCoin did not generate their own master key, so theoretically theirs is safer because it doesn't require the trust that Zcash does. But crypto privacy sector, looking at how to maintain privacy on the blockchain and why the blockchain is not private, and how that detective work, the detective work that was used to investigate the flow of the MountGox bitcoins from public address to public address in order to finally at least nail one of the guys who was involved in that hack, gives us a lot of information about cryptographic protocols and privacy protocols in coins on the blockchain, and gives us some idea about which of these coins are going to hold massive value in the future, because privacy is obviously a very important component of cryptocurrency. So I hope this video has given you some very powerful, helpful information that you can apply to make better, more informed, more research-based cryptocurrency investing decisions. Ciao for now.